Stay asleep. Stay asleep. Stay asleep. Oh, no. Wake up. Wake up, everybody. Larry Krueger, Damon Bruce. Wake up on a Monday. Niners lose again. Ah!
It's Monday, December 2nd, and the 49ers season basically ended in Buffalo. It would take nothing short of a miracle to reach the postseason now, and it doesn't look like this team is in the miracle business at all. Atrocious losses in Green Bay and in Buffalo leave 49er fans, like you said, Larry, wishing they could just spend the rest of the day in bed and not have to wake up and confront the reality that this season, it'll play out, but it's not going anywhere. And it doesn't seem that Christian McCaffrey is going to be around much longer due to a knee injury, which just was unfortunate because he actually gave the 49ers just a quarter's worth of hope. But as soon as he went out, the 49ers basically got up and left the casino. They had nothing left to really gamble with, and it was a bad night all the way around. Failures in every level of football, which has dotted way too many 49er games, Larry. Failures on all three levels.
Well, I mean, there's so much failure that there's not enough time probably in today's show to get through it all. But I mean, the one that stands out to me is they couldn't tackle at all from about the fourth drive on. And what does that tell you? It tells you that they're either, they did tackle well in the first three drives. So when they're bringing optimal energy, they can get it done. As soon as optimal drops even one iota, it's jailbreak. I made notes in my notes of watching the game. When they got to that fourth possession, it was like the 49ers no longer could stop the run at all. And this is after Cook had gone for 65 yards and a touchdown. After that point, they just couldn't do anything against the run. They couldn't stop the run. And if you can't stop the run in a snow game, you're gonna lose. And they lost. I mean, it was
at halftime, Larry. At halftime. And by the way, I apologize. I got a bad head cold, everybody. I know I don't sound very good. I won't take up too much of your show today, I promise. But at halftime, Buffalo was running for like 8.1 a clip. I mean, it was just atrocious. You're right. The tackling, which has been an issue all season long. I thought that could have been a Nick Sorensen tarmac game where he was just asked to stay in Buffalo, go get some wings or something, man. But you're not coming back to Santa Clara. That's how bad of a defensive effort it really was, I thought, all things around. And you can, elements, schmelements. These are problems that have arrived long before the team came to play in Buffalo. And they've been uncorrected. And we're way too long into a season to say Nick Sorensen's going to turn this around. The Sorensen-Brandon Staley marriage to be the defensive think tank for the 49ers has not delivered. In a season where player availability has, basically pockmarked their chances of putting their best effort forward, they really had to have all of their details closely monitored. They needed to be an attention to detail type of football team to make up for the talent gap that they were suffering from. And the opposite happened. In a year where they needed to be more buttoned up than ever, they've been sloppier than ever and have now lost by a combined score of 53 points their last two games. This is not Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco 49er football. They're getting their ears pinned back defensively. Offensively, they're incredibly limp-wristed right now. There is no, there's nothing that you look at and even think like, yeah, that reminds me of last year. It was, it's
probably not fair to hang it on Sorensen, is it? I mean, you just kind of you started with Sorensen, but then you went to, offense, and they're bad on special teams. And I think they're bad because of personnel. Defense has been
worse than anything. I kind of am putting it a lot on Sorensen.
Is it the scheme or is it the personnel? I mean, I think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan deserve the blame. They're the ones who picked the players. They're the ones who charted the course. They're the ones who said, you know what, we should deplete our depth and go after Javon Hargrave on the heels of missing on a lot of number ones. I mean, that right there was a very, very, to go all in on any singular type free agent after you've missed on 6, 7, 8 number ones in a short period of time is, man, that's risk. It's high risk. And they rolled the dice and they lost.
They certainly did. They certainly did. And the wheels are the wheels are off. I mean, 3 fumbles. They lost all of them. Deebo Samuel hasn't seen 50 yards of offense since the month of September or whatever. I mean, he's just been a shell of himself. Brandon Ayuk obviously is out of the mix. This team has forgotten completely how to get a ball to George Kittle. How he could only have 2 targets and 1 catch last night, I do not know. Ricky Pearsall is definitely sprinting in the direction of I don't belong in this league more than he's sprinting in the direction of I'm going to be a good 49er one day. He was targeted once, and on that target, he fell down. I mean, that's pretty much what you need to know about the 49ers offense. He fell down on his singular solo target of the game. And, it's kind of over. It's over. And I know that everybody wants to start picking up the pieces and ask, where does it go from here? And that's what I think our shows are going to sound an awful lot like. And that's what we're going to be talking about, because there's not a lot of there remaining for the 49ers in the 2024 season. Where you will find some there is at Sam's Chowder House. We want to thank our sponsor, Sam's Chowder House. We hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, obviously. And you probably don't want to cook another big meal for a while. Well, go down to Sam's Chowder House in Half Moon Bay and let them do all the cooking and the cleaning and the dishes for you. They will even bring you the food that you order. It's kind of like a restaurant. Look at that lobster roll. Oh, it's so good. After a very cold day in Buffalo, I bet that paella or cioppino would have been a welcome guest for anyone who was at that game last night. And let me just say, if you are a 49er fan who got on an airplane to go to that game last night, the 49ers should find you and give you a free ticket to a game next year. You are a diehard if you went to that one. That is hardly a vacation destination level game. And to suffer those, did you see the one kid, kind of like a stocky, husky kid who was sitting there in front of some luxury box? He was wearing a Niner chain, shirt off, like some 11-year-old 49er fan kid. He looked like Bert Kreischer. It was fantastic.
Didn't see it. I mean, it's like another planet looking at that situation and then thinking about what we look at outside, and you wonder why it's so expensive to live in California. I mean, my God, those people are going to be sitting in that white snow in a mess, in a wreck of a place with wind and cold and snow, and it's going to be snow on the ground till fucking May.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. But back to the Niners.
It's the first 30 minutes of Empire. You're living on the planet Hoth. Everyone in Buffalo should get a tauntaun.
Everybody's talking about the Niners' red zone offense. Nobody ever talks about the red zone defense. The red zone defense has been absolutely the worst it could possibly be. This week, the Bills went 4 for 4 in the red zone. Last week, Green Bay went 5 for 5. That's right. That's 9 for 9 in 2 games. 100% red zone touchdown percentage for Green Bay and Buffalo against the 49ers defense. So there's no resistance in the red zone at all. They just lie down in the red zone. They can't get it done themselves in the red zone. They're turning the ball over at just a record rate. I mean, you now have to ask all the questions. Every question that you don't want to ask, you got to ask. Is John Lynch right for this job? Is Kyle Shanahan long for this job? Is Brock Purdy the guy long term? Do the 49ers need to go and search for better everything? Or are they, Belichick said it on Inside the NFL, I think last week. He's like, when you're on top, it feels like you're never going to be knocked off your perch. And when you're not on top, it feels like you're miles and miles and miles away. But in reality, it's small adjustments that get you there. Last year at this time, Philadelphia was a wreck. They had no pass defense. They had Jason Kelsey retiring. You had guys pointing the finger, people talking about Sirianni's out. They had to fire both coordinators. And here they are right now. I would bet them to go to the Super Bowl out of the teams in the NFC. So things can change in a hurry, good and bad in this league. That's the good news. That's the bad news, depending on where you're sitting. And for the 49ers, that's good news because they're not sitting on the top. But they have to consider all options. I'm a huge fan of Brock Purdy. I really believe that Brock Purdy is a definite upgrade on Trey Lance, definite upgrade on Jimmy Garoppolo, definitely the best quarterback the Niners have had since, I think, Steve Young. So I'm a Brock Purdy fan. But the reality is that 18 of the last 21 quarterbacks to hoist the Lombardi Trophy, 18 of them, Damon, have been either Hall of Famers or their future Hall of Famers, like a Stafford or a Russell Wilson or whatever. So is Brock Purdy, I think we have to ask the question, is Brock Purdy good enough? He's good. He's good enough to start in this league. He's good enough to be a top half of the league quarterback. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I have him somewhere between 5 and 12 in that range. Everybody's got a different ranking, but that's where I have him. So I think he's good enough, and I would try to build around him. But I'm also not totally naive, Damon, as far as like, I know he's not Josh Allen. I know he's not Mahomes. I know he's not Lamar. And so I think I would do one thing going forward at quarterback. And I think this is a big part of their kind of build, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. Go forward with Brock Purdy, pay Brock Purdy, okay? Because he's the best you got. But then as far as QB2, QB3, QB4, instead of going with, you know what, Brandon Allen's on the roster, he'll never be the starter, but he's on the roster. Josh Dobbs is on the roster, but he'll never be the starter. I think I would eliminate the quarterbacks who will never be starters if I've got Brock going forward. And I think I'd like to have, you know, cheap rookie quarterbacks who I believe in, and then take a chance to see which of these guys emerges as a starting NFL quarterback. Because, Damon, if you can do this, then you can accelerate your rebuild. You can flip one of those quarterbacks, you know, somewhere else for a pick or two, and it's the fastest way to rebuild. And it also kind of assures you that you keep looking for the next great quarterback, even though you're not going to look in round one, but you are going to keep looking. So, that's kind of where I'm at. I really think it's important that they, A, go with Brock, and B, keep looking for his replacement. I know that sounds contradictory, but I think that's kind of where they're at. When you have a quarterback that's not top 5, maybe not even top 10, but like in that, I think 5 to 12 range. Some people would say 10 to 15 range, whatever. You're not elite, but you're clearly better than most. What's the game plan to go forward with that guy? You can't just discard quarterback. But at the same time, you can't just say he's our guy, you know. But at the same time, you have to keep drafting. So, like for me personally, I like Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. He's not going to be a first round pick. He's not going to be a second round pick. I like Haynes King from Georgia Tech. Really athletic, beat or hung with Georgia this weekend. Really athletic, really talented. They're day 3 quarterbacks, right? They're not day 1 or day 2 quarterbacks. Take a shot, trade for a couple extra day 3 picks, take a shot on some young quarterbacks, and then fill in behind Brock with rookie cheap quarterbacks because it helps you on the cap. And then also develop those guys. Get it, you know, have Greasy and Shanahan hire another developmental coach, develop your quarterbacks. And if one of those guys becomes better than Purdy, give him the job and trade Purdy. And if one of those guys becomes good enough but not better than Purdy, then trade Riley Leonard in a year to somebody for a starting salary, for a starting quarterback return. So that's what I would do. I think it's important that they have a plan that makes sense. And to me, that's the plan that makes sense.
I agree with you. I mean, I love Brock Purdy at the price point he exists in right now. Brock Purdy at an elite quarterback price point feels like a different equation. At the same time, I mean, the fact that they would have to go about drafting a quarterback in this upcoming draft to me is just you're Nothing but offensive linemen and defensive linemen should be drafted in this next draft. I mean, their defensive line is non-existent at this point in time. Without Nick Bosa, it's like they're not even out there. And this team used
linebacker
when it was a phenomenal football team, they dominated the line of scrimmage in both directions. The 49ers are all out of the dominating the line of scrimmage business. They really are. And that is where I think the entire difference in last year and this year can really be found. Oh, and by the way, with the whole Fred Warner's had a broken ankle since week 3, the 49ers owe me my gambling debts. Every time I bet on the 49ers should be fined tens of millions of dollars for hiding a Fred Warner broken ankle. I haven't seen that on the injury report at all year. They should be fined millions.
He announced it at his locker this week. So this week you have no cover. But in past weeks, I kind of agree. I mean, you're diverting. It's like, and when he told us, he's like, I probably got myself in trouble. Well, you're never in trouble if you speak the truth. But also in hockey and football, if you tell everybody where you're hurting, a lot of times they scheme to beat you. Oh, Fred's got a bad ankle. Let's make Fred, run to his left and then take a sharp turn to his right. Let's put him in a tough spot. So there's some gamesmanship involved.
But here's the thing: you cannot be in the gamble on us business and not be transparent about injuries.
But they're not. Every guy in the room, Damon. I mean, come on. This is pro football. It's December. Every single guy in the room has an injury.
Sure. Broken ankle is like a step above. That's a cut above, right? I mean, the fact that it hasn't had
many little bones. There's many. I'm just saying it's not a full blown broken ankle. It's a micro fracture of one of the many bones in the ankle.
All I know is that I thought the Fred Warner began this year. I thought the Fred Warner began the year on a defensive player of the year track. And then about the time he broke his ankle is about the time he became a different player. And again, had I known that Fred Warner were out there with a broken ankle, there's hundreds of dollars that I'm not wagering on the 49ers over the course of those weeks.
Well, here's the message for everybody out there in this situation. Stop betting on the 49ers. Okay. Don't bet on the 49ers.
Here's the deal. Give me the freaking information I need to avoid betting on the 49ers.
Now. Don't bet on the Niners.
Okay, but again,
don't bet against the Niners.
Being transparent, in all the weeks they weren't being transparent. By the way, last night was easy money. I did bet against the Niners. Easy money. The easiest bet of the year. Easiest bet of the year. Larry, I told you on Friday that the Bills could win this game running quarterback draw 55 times. And they could have. By the way, the Josh Allen completion to Amari Cooper, pitch back to Josh Allen diving at the pylon, is one of the greatest football plays I've ever seen in my entire life. That was awesome. Yeah, that was like a high school. That's how movies end. Right? Like that's the final play of the movie. And oh my God, it was fantastic.
I took everything I had not to bet Buffalo last night. I had a very successful wagering weekend. And I'm like, you know what? I know Buffalo is going to win this game. I know Buffalo is going to win this game big. This is absolutely somebody's handing me free money. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. It's bad karma. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't sit there and root for a result against my money. I can't root for my money against my team. I just can't.
I hear you. I hear you.
It's bad karma.
Look at it this way. All of my that's bad karma goes right out the window when I hear that you've been lying to me about Fred Warner's broken ankle. Fuck you guys. Pay me.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a couple supers here. We got some people backing up. We got this one, Mason Davis, 100% agree on your take on the regime last night. But if Kyle and the Niners separate, who would you want to take over?
Bill Belichick.
Okay, here's what I'm proposing. I'm not proposing regime change. Regime change is for maniacs. They were in the Super Bowl last year. Anybody who gets super high on their own supply and starts going crazy about fire Kyle, fire John, pause and then loudly say they were in the Super Bowl last year. Okay. Just I think it'll be good for everybody. It's a good exercise. Okay. So that's why you don't fire them, because they were in the Super Bowl last year.
Lynch
But
stays. Here's what we know. Lynch is staying. Kyle is staying. And one of those guys is going to have to choose to walk away to not be in the position next year. This team does need a new defensive coordinator. The Brandon Staley, Nick Sorensen marriage has not worked out, and they need a new special teams coordinator. They will be flushing, I think, some of their coaching staff.
Oh, there's always change. I mean, there's been change every single year that the Niners have been in existence. There've been,
and they need another. I honestly think they need another offensive mind in the room. Well, not coordinator, not someone who's going to override Shanahan, but just somebody else to put their eyes on the. Shanahan has writer's block as a head coach, right? It feels like he's got writer's block.
I mean, they need to evaluate everything. I mean, themselves, their processes, their coaches, their players, everything. It all has to be evaluated. But as far as I'm concerned, what I would do if I was Jed is, because Jed has to be the one who authors this change, because they're not going to author their own change, right? Nobody's going to say, well, let's take away some of my power here and take away some of John's power there, and let's do it this way. No, they're not going to do that. So if I was Jed, I would say, hey, look, I want to go forward with you guys. We've gotten close. It hasn't happened, but I need the defensive coordinator fired. I need the special teams coach fired. John, I need you to kick yourself upstairs into a presidential role. We need to hire a proven talent evaluator to at least consult with us, at least. I mean, you don't want to give him the job and okay, fine. But you have to go get a draft coordinator, somebody who can help you stop fucking striking out in the first round. You're going nowhere. You're going nowhere if you don't. Well, I mean, Scott McCloughan, but he's got some demons. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's John Dorsey. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's somebody we're not thinking of. But they need to go get some personnel help. Then they need to get a star defensive coordinator, and they need to, to start hitting in the draft at a much higher rate. And then they have to have a plan at quarterback, and they've got to have a plan to, and you're going to have to, Kyle, it's going to be one of those things where, Kyle, do these things or there's the door. Either get rid of your coordinator, your special teams coordinator, your defensive coordinator, and let's find and stop and take away some of his personnel control. Get a real bottom line GM in there who the buck stops with that guy, and let him do what Brian Gutekunst does. He talks to LaFleur. He finds out what LaFleur wants and needs from his football team, and then he goes into the draft and he goes and finds it, and he says, here's your team, and then LaFleur coaches it. Same deal that they have in Green Bay, they should have here. Get your super astute, guy. I mean, they had a very good draft, but they keep missing in the first round. And you're never going to win a Super Bowl if you don't hit in the first round. You can't go 2 for 10 like they have gone in the first round and not feel that. Why are they feeling what they're feeling today? Because they've gone 2 for 10 in the first round. That is the number one issue. So I love John Lynch. Super good face of the franchise. They didn't have one before he showed up. Let him be the president. Let him, do something. But he's not a personnel guy. He was a great safety. He was a great announcer. It's like go get a proven personnel guy who's built championship teams. And then tell Kyle this is the way it's going to go. And if he doesn't like it, then we'll go in a different direction and we can part ways right here. And I think if you're asking me to be honest, I would say he's going to take his ball and he's going to go home. He's going to leave. If Jed tries to throw some, you don't have personnel control. I need a new D coordinator. I need a new special teams coordinator. I want you to have, a little bit more than you have right now. He's not going to sit there and be like, okay. He's going to be like, I want out of my contract. And then they're going to have to decide, do they want him? Do they want him as is, or do they want to make a change? And I'll throw it to you first, Damon. What do you want to do? You want Shanahan as is, no changes, or do you want change? And that means maybe somebody else.
No, I mean, it would have to be Shanahan with conditions. He doesn't just get to walk in wearing the badge and the hat, riding in on the horse and say, I'm the only sheriff in town. I'm the law man. I'm Johnny Law. No,
New World Order.
Yeah, look, Shanahan has done a great job with a coaching staff that has had high turnover. At some point, the great candidate after great candidate train, it slows down. He has whiffed on the elevation of Sorensen and the addition of Brandon Staley. I'm not going to say he whiffed on special teams, but the kicker that they drafted in the third round, of the three kickers we've seen all this year, is far and away the worst of the three kickers. He missed 2 more field goals last night.
And they did whiff on special teams. You can say it.
Yeah,
they whiffed on special teams. They're horrible. Yeah. They're consistently horrible on special teams.
But again, I would have been ready to walk away in week 3, and they're going to ride this thing to the end. I mean, the Chicago Bears have done the unthinkable. They have fired a coach mid-season. That has never happened in over 100 years. If the Bears can let go of a head coach in season, you'd think the 49ers would be capable of shaking up their locker room enough with a coaching firing. Because, by the way, there is a malaise. You could see it overcome the 49ers. Last night was the first night I've seen the 49ers quit on a football game.
You felt like they quit?
After that Debo fumble, it was over. That was it. That was everybody just was cold. And like, I'm not even going to blame them. I'm not going to play the shame game. It was a terrible environment. You wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. You had no chance to win the game. As soon as Mitch Trubisky is playing for the Bills, who wants to remain playing for the 49ers? Like, I
thought it was over way before that. I mean,
it was over before they got on the plane. Yeah. If we're being completely honest about their chances to win.
I'll tell you when it was over. It was over when Moody missed the 45-yard field goal in the second quarter. So basically the game starts. Niners are, Buffalo comes out. They're forced to punt. Niners go down. They kick the 33-yard Jake Moody field goal. They're up 3-0. Bills get the ball back. They drive down the field. Ray Davis scores a 5-yard touchdown, 12 plays, 7-3 Buffalo. Niners get the ball back, and they move it down the field. They get to the 3rd and 13 at the 33, and they ran Mason inside on 3rd and 13. So it's like, I don't understand what Kyle is doing on that play, Damon. That is the play that fucking pisses me off. You're 3rd and 13 from the 33. Are you playing for a field goal in those conditions? I think you almost have to play like the field goal is a non-option. They literally set themselves up for a Jake Moody 45-yard field goal.
Right.
In those conditions. So that right there was fucking 10 times stupid.
I thought it right was there when we saw Mason carry it on 3rd down, I thought, well, they're running a play on 4th down for sure.
Right. And then instead they didn't. They kicked a 45-yard Jake Moody field goal and he missed it. So now you've missed a field goal. Shanahan is gagged all over the 3rd down call. And the very next play, James Cook goes 65 yards, 1 play, 14-3. That was it. That was a wrap. That was the ball game. Right there. The 49ers on the next series got the ball. They had a 28-yard run from Mason on the first play of the drive, and they moved down the field into Buffalo territory. They get to 1st down on the 37. And by the way, the Niners undoing in this game, Kev was looking at some of the numbers. It's their 1st down runs that got nothing that absolutely ruined them. And Isaac Guerrero was handed the ball, 1st and 10 on the 37. He got nothing. So now it's 2nd and 10. Purdy gets sacked by Von Miller. It's 3rd and 10. Russo sacks Purdy, and they're forced to punt. They downed it on the 3 because of George Odom. But that was it right there. You're down 14-3. You just punted. On the very next series, this would be Buffalo's 4th series. This is when this game was clearly done. They came out, they threw to Dawson Knox for 39 yards, and he carries Jair Brown like the last 10 yards. I mean, it was the most embarrassing tackling I've ever seen. That's the second and 8 play. Then they're 1st and 10 at the 44. They run James Cook for 16 yards. He runs totally through the defense. The only guy who showed any interest in hitting him was Mustafa. Then it's 1st and 10 at the 39. Cook runs again for 11 yards. I wrote in my notes, horrendously poor tackling. So they're down on the 28-yard line, and sure enough, he found Mac Hollins against Mooney Ward, and I know Mooney's been through hell this year, but Mooney's coverage against Mac Hollins was fucking abysmal on that touchdown.
Speaking of
21-3, that was it. Wrap. Goodbye. Not call it a night. Yeah. 21-3 on the road against Josh Allen. 49ers got the ball back with 41 seconds left in the second quarter. They drove down the field and tried to kick a Jake Moody 55-yard field goal, and that missed, and they're going to the locker room 21-3. And you were almost right when you said that Buffalo averaged 8.8 yards a carry. How about this? 8.8. Almost 9 yards a carry is what Buffalo averaged in the first half of this game. 16 runs for 141 yards. So you played for a field goal like an idiot. You settled for 2 field goals that missed. I mean, the thing came off the rails in the second half, but CMC left in the second quarter with the injury. To me, Damon, when CMC left the field, it felt like the game was over. That was on the 49ers' second possession, right before they set up Jake Moody to miss a 45-yarder. CMC went out like 3 plays before that. And that's where the game ended. I think the Niners kind of quit right there because James Cook on the 65-yarder, there was the defense on that was fucking atrocious.
Yeah.
And to me, that was it. That was where the Niners said, you know what, we give.
So McCaffrey probably got hurt on that 18-yard burst up the middle, which, but for a shoestring tackle, he might have been in the end zone for the first time this year.
He looked
at
good.
11:23 to go in the second quarter. He took a pitch to the right, planted his foot, turned upfield, and immediately went down. He gave himself up and just got up and jogged off. Everyone saying PCL. And look, it is too bad because I thought that McCaffrey was looking better. And the run blocking was actually setting up better in Buffalo than it had for him in any game that he'd returned. He had 53 yards on 7 carries before he left the field. So I thought, okay, maybe McCaffrey can one-man army this game into a fourth quarter game, and then you take a shot. No, as soon as he left, it hurt. But it was good to see Mason come back, and it was good to see Kyle Shanahan remember that the just leading the NFL in rushing running back that he has on his own roster, still on his own roster. It's too bad it took a Christian McCaffrey injury for him to really rediscover Jordan Mason. But it sounds like
the big loser. You know who's the big loser? The big loser last night, Damon, was Aaron Banks, because he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's been playing the last few games. He got absolutely embarrassed, I thought, by Carl Brooks, the backup Green Bay defensive lineman who just beat Banks with quickness, beat him with power. I mean, he really beat him multiple times. Banks could not play in this game. They plugged in Ben Barch at left guard and Jalen Moore at left tackle, and they ran the ball far better in this game than they did with Banks. So, that I hate to say it for Banks because I like Banks, but you know what? He probably just sealed his fate out of town because they're going to be in a cap problem. And if they can go with cheap Ben Barch and do better over expensive Aaron Banks, guess what? They're going to.
They will.
And I think after yesterday, that's almost a guarantee. Let's get through a couple more supers here so we don't get too backed up. Third, Thizzard of Oz says, oh, man, terrible news. Trent Williams and his wife Sandra lost their baby, 35 weeks, stillborn. She just posted about it. He needs to take as much time away as he can. Him and Mooney. Oh my gosh. That is unthinkable. That is the unthinkable.
It's the second, infant mortality that this team has gone through this year. That it's terrible. So
can you imagine the emotional distress carrying a baby inside you and just And I have friends who this has happened to, and you just, all
Well,
you can do
Larry,
is tell your
in,
friends that you're there for them.
Larry,
And it's just
in
unbelievable.
between Jack and Ozzy, in between Jack and Ozzy, Jillian and I lost a baby, and it's so painful. It's so painful. It was early enough in the pregnancy, but it still hurt. We were picking out names, and that stuff is just so real life. So it's got nothing to do with football, but it's the most painful thing we've ever been through. So I got nothing but love for Trent and what Javarius Ward and his wife have gone through too.
D Martinez 949 says, I'd cut Jair Brown today. The Bills targeted him regularly. He has no taste for contact. He's soft. He's definitely not soft. He's a hard hitter. That's not it. It's just, he may not be a free safety, and he may not be. Let's be honest. A lot of what's happened with some of these young guys is what happened with the Warriors a couple years ago. When you don't have talent and you don't have depth, your young guys play by default, and they don't earn the run. They don't earn the minutes. And then suddenly they have bad habits, and they've got all kinds of bad habits that they picked up because they really shouldn't have been starting to begin with. Jair Brown was force-fed early on, and he's probably not a developed player yet. And, I think it's pretty clear he's gotten more time than he would have gotten if this team had been a little deeper. Rakib Jumani says, regardless, what's going on with my beloved Niners, at least you two gentlemen are always winners.
Well, thank you, Rakib. Appreciate that. I'll tell you, the content, Larry, I just had my first 1 million views in the month of November. So, maybe the Niners backing out of the playoffs is actually good for business. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, we know there's going to be a lot of breakdown. I'll say this. I'm working on a video today. I'm a solution guy. I went through and looked at all the pending free agents, and I've got a list of 4 or 5 that I think make a lot of sense for the 49ers in the offseason. So we'll put that up later today.
Meanwhile, the cops are chasing Larry. You can see the lights. They're coming after him. Everyone's like, what's going on with the flashing lights? So it's a
low battery on the it's a low battery. I can't turn it to just red for my Niners yet. So I've got to replace the battery. Until I do, it's giving me this kind of your battery is low. So
you need to replace that battery today. I feel like I'm in a torture chamber.
Mark Gray says, any D-lineman put up a fight yesterday. Saw a guy standing. I thought Evan Anderson was really good. I thought he put up a fight a lot of the day. I thought
Malik Collins made a couple of plays, but they were so far and few between, it didn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, they no Bosa, no Jordan Elliott. You're out there just, trying to get by. And but where the Niners, we can talk about regression. There's been regression almost everywhere, right? Almost everywhere. But as far as where, a lot of times people are like, hey, Krug, I want to know what you actually think. Where has this team had the major backslide? The major backslide is in 2 areas. It's the skill position guys that last year were the best in the league. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, CMC. Those guys were awesome. The best collection of skill guys in the league.
Right. The Niners were the enemy of the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, they've all taken a dramatic step backwards. Okay, that's one. And the other spot is linebacker. They had the best linebackers in football last year. Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw together were dominating on that second level by themselves. You've replaced an all-pro linebacker with a street free agent that his last team didn't want. And Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who's a lifetime special teamer. And you're sitting there going, why is our defense missing all these tackles? I don't understand. Well, you have no fucking linebackers. You got rid of all your good linebackers. You had Azeez Al-Shaair, he's gone. You had Dre Greenlaw, he's gone. You replaced him with guys who aren't as good. That's what happened.
By the way, Azeez Al-Shaair, he might be suspended another week after that hit on Trevor Lawrence, which was all kinds of dirty pool. The only thing that Azeez Al-Shaair has going for him is a reputation of not being a dirty player. He was involved in one of the worst plays of the entire NFL season with the hit that he put on a sliding Trevor Lawrence, giving himself up. I'm sure he wishes he could have that one back. We both know that Azeez Al-Shaair is not a a dirty player, but boy, he was involved in about as dirty a play as you'll see.
He's a vicious hitter. Lorenzo, and that was dirt. That one was above the line, but you're right. He doesn't go over the line very much. Lorenzo Gonzalez says finding a new quarterback is horse crap, in my humble opinion. Other team wide receivers, tight ends, and other running backs make amazing plays all the time for their quarterback. Can the D hold a fourth quarter lead? I'm not saying that you have to get rid of Brock Purdy. What I'm saying is you're going to go forward with a quarterback room that includes Brock and other quarterbacks. And all I'm saying is for multiple reasons, right? For the cost, because you're going to pay Brock a ton. You can't afford $5 million for backup quarterbacks, right? You just can't. And you definitely can't afford, $9 million, whatever you paid Darnold last year. I think it was actually $6 million. But yeah, you just can't afford expensive veteran backup quarterbacks. So all I'm saying is I agree that you can't do that. But I also agree that until you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, you have to keep looking. So what I would do is keep taking a chance in the draft on not day 1 or day 2 quarterbacks, but day 3 quarterbacks that you're intrigued by. Put them on your roster, see if any of them hit. If you hit, now you've got a piece that you can trade for a first-round draft choice. That's the way I'd play my quarterback.
I almost think that it's tough to spend that high cap or the high draft capital on a backup quarterback if you are going to be paying Brock Purdy $55-60 million. You need the offensive lineman. You need the defensive lineman.
Yeah, but I'm saying day 3. I'm saying day 3 okay. Because that's where you got Brock, day 3. And guess what? There are other teams out there that find day 3 quarterbacks. I'm not saying it's common. I'm just saying, give me a quarterback room next year that doesn't have Brandon Allen, doesn't have Dobbs, but does have Purdy, does have Tanner Mordecai, and give me a couple of rookies that you like, that you think the same guys who liked Purdy, give them a shot to see if they can find somebody else. And if they can find, because the way it is, the way it is in football, everybody knows what they want in a quarterback once they see it, but nobody can actually see it. So in reality, keep picking intriguing day 3 quarterbacks. If you feel like you can see it better than your opponents, all it takes is for one Riley Leonard or Haynes King to be considered starting caliber after a good preseason run or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, we'll give you a 2nd-round pick for that guy. That's how you get better faster. Lorenzo Gonzalez is okay. We got that one. Tommy Black says, I don't like how quick everyone is switching up on Brock. He has a terrible line and his best receivers, Juwan Jennings. Shout out, pig it up, pickle. I don't think people are switching up on Brock. I think Brock is just the head of the snake, and people know that the Niners need help.
Well, and
they are on the verge of either paying Brock, $50 million, $60 million. Some people want $30 million. I was just watching Chase Sr. He right now is saying pay Brock $33 million. Yeah, he says basically that, pay Brock $33 million. So I don't know. I mean, everybody's got a different thought on it. To me, Brock is definitely, some people want to wait. Some people would rather wait to extend him. I'll extend him. I want to extend him at my price. So I don't want to go north of 50 million. I want to go south of 50 million. And if he's not willing to play ball with me on that, then I'll say, hey, let's table it for a year and see where it goes next year.
Look, man,
but I definitely am going to go into the draft and look for other guys. Definitely.
He had 94 passing yards last night. Man, I know
but Josh Allen had nothing.
Conditions weren't great. But yeah, he had 94 passing yards. And look, it's amazing to me how uninvolved Kittle is.
Negligence.
Explain it to me. Explain it to me like I don't know what I'm talking about. Why does George Kittle get 2 targets when he's one of the only dudes who came to play all year long? I just don't understand it.
I don't either. I mean, they're using him to block, but for the love of God, go get another blocking tight end and put this guy in the pattern. Mike824, for the love of God, fire Staley and Sorensen. I mean, those guys could be fired just on look what the Chargers were when you were there, Brandon, and look what they are without you, and look at this defense with you. That right there could be like goodbye. Anthony licked Scorpion. Larry, do you mind turning your background lights from pulse to solid light? It's very distracting. Thanks. Quest for 6 continues.
You can't do it. Can't do it.
Can't do it while the show's going on. Blood Moon says Ian Rappaport saying CMC has a PCL sprain. Exhale for 2025. Yeah, but he's still going to have the Achilles tendonitis. I mean, they're screwed. They're paying big money to CMC. He's beat up. They're paying huge money to Ayuk. He's going to miss a good chunk of the year next year. They've extended, Debo to make this all work. They probably should kiss Debo goodbye. Kittle's on the wrong side of 30.
He's got to be gone.
The O-line needs rebuilding. The D-line needs rebuilding. The linebacking core needs rebuilding. I mean, they don't have a free safety. They don't have any speed at wide receiver. Yeah, they're in a hurt. They're in a world of hurt. Boxing fan ×4 says go back to running with multiple running backs. Invest in the trenches, being buddy with players and letting them hold out. Get an experienced assistant head coach. You can be buddies with players. I mean, that's okay. But I mean, bottom line is you got to get them signed on time. You got to get them in camp.
The Niners got a lot of problems. Relationship problems aren't among them.
The regular Ryan, no more coach-player vacations, clouding judgment. Yeah, that's never a good look. Nathan McFadden, which starters on the roster contribute next year?
Diamador Lenore, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, Jordan Mason, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Fred Warner, Malik Mustafa.
Maybe Greenlaw if you can get him signed.
Leonard Floyd, if you're bringing him back.
I mean, they got a handful of guys.
Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings, I don't know if he starts, but yeah.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't he? He's better than every other one of these fucking guys. I mean, he's not just slow. A little bit better than Debo. Debo wishes he were Juwan Jennings. We might as well give Juwan Jennings a fucking podcast too.
HR says, just leave Kyle. You ain't ish, but a choke job. Just leave, Kyle. You ain't ish, but a choke job. There we go. Fuji Simeon, weather aside, should the Niners move off of Moody? I know he's a third-round pick. Also, fumble aside, Debo on kick returns was somewhat productive. Feel bad for CMC. Yeah, no, Debo doesn't have quickness or change of direction like he had. But what he has is build-up speed. And on a kickoff return, build-up speed is what you need. Yeah. So he looked really good on the kickoff returns.
Until he fumbled it.
But the conditions were really, really bad. As far as Moody, would you move off of Jake Moody? I think I probably would.
Yeah, he's not good. I mean, here's the thing. He has got a huge leg, and he short-armed one last night, and he is just inaccurate. I mean, he pushes of the three kickers we've seen kick for the 49ers this year, he's far and away been the least trustworthy. That's not good.
Lynch is like, he's going to be here for a while. It's like, John, stop protecting.
Maybe you won't be, John.
Yeah, John, stop protecting your draft picks. This has been becoming a problem. Last year, you protected the undrafted free agent signing of Deshaun Jameson to keep Isaiah Oliver. This year, you protected your free agent signing of Isaac Yiadom over Sam Womack. That made no sense. You can't keep, you want to keep Moody because you invested a third-round pick in him. It's like, that is part of the problem, is that there's more weight on the kicker decision because you invested a third-round pick in him. It's like almost by definition, that's a mistake.
Right.
Bill M says,
Fuji, I'm not feeling very good. No 11 o'clock show today. I'm going back to bed after this show. I don't feel
Fuji
good at all.
So you feeling better? Bill M says, goddamn right, Larry. Kicking any field goal over 35 yards in that weather was nuts. Yeah, I mean, to play for a field goal was just to play for a 45-yard field goal and a
Well, I mean, here's the
55-yard
thing.
field goal.
There probably is a greater mathematical percentage of the field goal going through than the Hail Mary becoming complete in the end zone touchdown. But
Yeah,
you missed.
but I was waiting for the but you're trying field goals in that in those weather conditions is not good. John Wallace, the season ended in the draft.
The draft was maybe the highlight of the season. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think what you meant is it ended in the 21, 22, and 23 drafts. That's where they really got screwed. L. Kurtz, time to rebuild from the GM to the kicker. Yeah, it's rebuild time for sure. HR says this is the natural decline of a Super Bowl winning cohort, except they didn't win. They got paid and all the praise, except they never actually got the job done. Thank you. It's kind of true.
I mean, there is no doubt about it that the best shot feels like it's in the rearview mirror. Overtime in Kansas City, you can't ask for more than that to try to win a Super Bowl, and they fucked that up. So
L. Kurtz says Juice and Debo got to go.
Oh, Larry, thank you for bringing up Kyle. Kyle Juszczyk is not Mike Allstott. Kyle Juszczyk, for a guy who's been in this league forever, has like, I think, a single-digit rushing touchdown total to his career. He is never given the ball to run it in from the goal line. And why he's given the ball to run it in from the goal line in Buffalo in bad conditions, what is that? I mean, Jesus, Kyle, personnel, situation. What? Come on.
Why
Kyle,
are you handing the ball to a guy who you've only handed it to like a couple times all year?
Kyle Juszczyk's wife's coats are in more position to help your football team tonight than Kyle Juszczyk is. What are you doing?
Get rid of this guy. I mean, seriously, get rid of this guy. Yeah. I can find you bigger, stronger guys. I can find you better fullbacks. You don't use him as a lead blocker. He doesn't catch the ball all that well. What does he do for the money? When he was asked about his fumble yesterday, he should have been like, it's absolutely inexcusable that somebody as limited as me as a runner would fumble the ball. Instead, he's like, yeah, I don't get too many carries. So now you're complaining about your usage in the middle of you're trying to apologize for your fucking fumble, and you're in the process of apologizing. You're like bagging on the coach for not getting more usage. Dude, nobody has gotten more money for less production on this team than fucking Kyle Juszczyk.
Well,
so I don't want to hear him complain about his cash.
I will say this though, like
or his touches.
You don't need a fullback on your football team anymore. And the only time Juszczyk has ever really popped or made a big play is when it's been a surprise. Juszczyk has done very well in sneak attack moments, but when you just try to get him involved, there's not a lot there. So it's
what you're paying him makes no sense.
How many games left in the year? That's how many games Kyle Juszczyk has in a Niner uniform.
I mean, but he walks around like he's a Pro Bowler, he's a Hall of Famer, he's this, he's that. You're not even the third or fourth best fullback in the history of the Niners. Dude, I mean, talk about a guy who's got an overinflated opinion of his own self-worth on this football team. My God, dude, what would you say you do? Fuji Simeon, thoughts on Stephen A. Smith calling for Aziz to be suspended 2 games? He got roughed up by the Jags players on the sideline in the post-hit tussle. I feel bad for Aziz. Well, I don't feel bad for Aziz. No. And as far as suspension, I don't know. I mean, whatever's in line for that kind of a thing. Stephen A. Smith.
Shut
the fuck up, Stephen A. Smith. What do you know? Stephen A. Smith, what do you know about it? Seriously, what do you know about it? You don't even know any of the players on any of the teams. You think everybody gives a shit about your thoughts on everything from politics to the NBA to the NFL. You're an overpaid, blowhard jackass.
What I do know is that there is a very, very good percentage that Stephen A. Smith could not have even told you who Aziz Al-Shair played for at 5 a.m. this morning until he was given the notes by his producer. We're doing this segment. I guarantee you there's no way he would have told you that, yeah, Aziz Al-Shair, linebacker, Houston Texans, right? No way. No way.
I mean, sometimes Stephen A. Smith, he's just talk about a guy whose ego. We're talking about Juszczyk's egos run amok. That guy's egos run amok. He's sitting there lecturing Oprah and all this stuff. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You stay in your fucking lane. Mike824, season from hell. Thank you, Mike. KR says, not sure if teams are allowed, but 49ers should have worn the red jerseys, not white. Brock couldn't see the receivers in white in the snow. That's actually probably not a bad point.
Yeah, but you can't just be like, oh, we're wearing our home uniforms. You can't.
They're in blue, we're in red. Fuji Simeon, I'm sorry that you and Julian had that happen. Or you and Jillian had that happen, Damon.
Thank you. It's Jillian with the G. Thank you very much.
Ray Rogers, like this year's draft, maybe not Ricky Pearsall, but that being said, a really good draft next year could bring the Niners right back. Thoughts? Well, there's no question. They had a good draft this year. I mean, go look at the NFL and go look at the history of the NFL. And you know what you're going to find? That the 85 Bears were awesome in 85. But really, the 85 Bears were built in 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. Those were the drafts that they accumulated all those players. 2 years after that, they're the 85 Bears. Where were the 80s? The Niners were awesome. 88, they won the Super Bowl. 89, they won the Super Bowl. 90, they almost won the Super Bowl. They almost won 3 in a row. That was their greatest heyday, right? Very nice. Very nice.
You want to talk about the 85 Bears? I'd love to.
Yeah. But I mean, the Niners, why were the Niners so good in the late 80s? Because they drafted Jerry Rice in 85 and they had the 86 draft, which gave them tons of players. So that's what, and that's, so that like this year's draft will help the Niners in a year or two. But right now, a lot of the guys that are supposed to be the core players were from the 23, 22, 21 drafts, and they barfed on themselves in those drafts.
Oh, those are terrible drafts.
Yeah. So that's why they're thin. But yeah, if they can put together a couple good drafts, they'll be back on top. Lucas Shea Houston Jr., tell me the Super Bowl window hasn't closed and all we need is a healthy Greenlaw, Ayuk, Fred Warner, Bosa, Hargrave, LOL, and a stellar first-round pick at safety. What position would you target in round 1 and round 2? I mean, I would definitely go best player available. What's really more important than do you get a free safety? Do you get a defensive end? Do you get a defensive tackle? Draft a great player. That's what the Lions are doing. They drafted Terrion Arnold, great player. They drafted Penei Sewell, great player. Sam Laporta, great player. Brian Branch, great player. Jahmyr Gibbs, great player. Just draft great players. It doesn't matter what position. Just find what players that you think are going to be great and draft them. And you can work out the positions on the back end. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'm targeting linebacker. I think they badly need an injection of athleticism and swagger at linebacker. Iceman says, morning. Not sure if you guys touched on this, but I'm questioning Kyle's quarterback development. Jimmy went backwards. Brock seems to be regressing. I think Brock is regressing, but I think Brock is regressing mostly because his equation is regressing. His offensive line, his weapons, his defense, his run defense, the special teams, the talent on this roster is eroding around Brock Purdy. I don't think Brock himself is actually regressing. I think he's the head of the snake, and so we react to it.
What I do think, though, is that there is a blind spot in development that way too many guys have hit. Again, why hasn't Mason Pline at this point in the season at least been elevated to a blocking tight end option? Well, how come Eric Saubert is unplayable? He remains so bad. And if he can't catch a football, then he must be a blocking tight end, but he's not good enough to be a blocking tight end. So why is he on the team?
Well, it's just, that one I think is fine because you have every team's going to have 5 to 10 guys on their practice squad or roster that are developmental, that they're there to develop for the future. And that's what Pline is. He's a 6'8" converted basketball player, lacks some functional strength, lacks some technique, but next year is going to absolutely make the roster because he's a really good receiver. He's got great hand-eye coordination. He can jump. He can run. But right now, they consider him a redshirt year, so they don't want to put him out there. Tommy Black's his tank for Ashton Gianti.
I'm fading. I'm fading.
We'll get through. Tommy Black, tank for Ashton Gianti. That's the Boise State running back. Travis Hunter couldn't hold his jockstrap. Yeah, Ashton Gianti's an amazing back. Sure.
By the way, don't tell me anything Travis Hunter can't do. Because that kid can do it all.
He's going to go number one.
Shit. He is the most remarkable college football talent we've seen in a while.
He's a Champ Bailey or something. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Digital Drew says, is there no worry in the quit we saw on this team? That is far more concerning than anything else to me. Points to systematic and cultural issues, in my opinion. I mean, guys are going to quit, I think, when they feel like there's no hope. And I think we saw that at points last night. Let's see how they finish out the year.
By the way, Bears are winning on Sunday. Bears are going to come in here with all kinds of like, hey,
you're probably right.
Our Eberflus is gone. They're going to be devil may care, triple reverse option, flea flickers coming at you. Why not? If I'm the Bears, I'm doing acid before I'm coming out here to play the Niners.
If the Bears beat the Niners on Sunday, there is going to be people going absolutely crazy calling for Kyle Shanahan's head.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to be people who work at the stadium are going to be calling for John and Kyle. John Kalua says, I would be okay reaching a bit and spending a third or a fourth on Drew Aller. That's Penn State, Carson Beck, Georgia, or Riley Leonard, Notre Dame. Brock has no competition this year or had no competition this year. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Brock would beat those guys out. But you know what? Go get those guys, because if Carson Beck, is really good or Riley Leonard's really good, guess what? The Raiders will give you a couple number ones in a year for him, and then you're going to rebuild faster. Benob says the Trent Williams out of shape ship has sailed. The greatest left tackle in football is BS. Last Super Bowl, he was getting pushed around. The young guy, number 74. Who's 74? Is that Burford?
Is it Jalen Moore?
Maybe Jalen Moore. I thought he was 78. Propa says, rushing to pay Purdy is idiotic. Look around at all the bad quarterback extensions across the league. Bro is below average if it's not Sonny and 75.
Okay, but if it is Sonny and 75, he has begun his career in a way that is measured against guys who are sitting in Canton and in the Hall of Fame.
I would say he's a very good quarterback, but he's not a Hall of Famer. And it may take a Hall of Famer to win the Super Bowl. And for that reason, I think you go forward with Brock, but you continue to look and continue to try to unearth future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And the good news for you is that they don't all come in the first round. So, invest in some later quarterbacks. I would say draft until you have a franchise Hall of Fame type quarterback. Draft a quarterback every year. You just can't go wrong. Big Tone says you can't cut. Huff.
There's also an element to the 49ers fan base that is the most obnoxious fucking group of douchebags you'll ever meet in your life. And they're the same group of guys that told everyone Steve Young's not good enough.
Right.
Steve Young is not good enough.
Lance is the guy.
Was Steve Young sucks is literally what was said by a lot of Niner fans right up until the minute that the monkey was being pulled off his back and he won his Super Bowl.
I got to laugh because there's so many people yesterday who were like, hey, there were people out there that thought that Josh Allen was better than Brock Purdy. And and he's not. Okay. It's like, well, first of all, nobody with a brain said that Brock Purdy was better than Josh Allen, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, a lot of the people that are saying, can you believe all these people that said that Brock Purdy is better than Josh Allen were telling us that Trey Lance is better than Brock Purdy? So, I mean, come on. We're going to play this game? Really? You really want to go down that road? Big Tone says you can't cut Huff now, not with Jair playing so bad. I don't think Huff's going to be here next year. I think Huff's moving on. Propa says if someone sneezes near the football, Brock's fumbling that. Yeah, I mean, he fumbled yesterday.
For a guy who played at Iowa State, I mean, it's not like he's from frickin' Boca Raton and only knows how to play in nice conditions. I mean, this kid went
wet
to Iowa
ball is
State.
not his thing, though. It's pretty
No.
clear at this point.
Yeah.
McCarty says next
like
season,
Element.
Zach Wilson for backup. You could do worse. You could do worse, I'm telling you. Fuji Simeon, would Joe Douglas be a decent draft consultant? He would be good. He'd be fine. Joe Douglas would be good. Scott McLuhan would be good. I would go with John Dorsey. Seems like there's a few guys out there that you could go with. Oli Kao, quarterback.
Shouldn't let Adam Peters out of the room, right?
I don't know about that. I mean, they had a really good draft this year without Peters, so who knows? I mean, Peters loved Ambry Thomas. How's that worked out? Oli Chaos
is running like the Buffalo Bills all of a sudden here, Larry.
All right, well, we're finishing up here. Oli Kao, quarterbacks in 25, Curtis Rourke, Kyle McCord, Haynes King.
Do we want to talk about Curtis Rourke for a minute? Come on.
That's the Indiana kid, right?
Did my Hoosiers put it on Purdue enough for you? I hope they did.
I almost took that one because I knew Purdue was really, really bad. I like Haynes King, by the way, out of those three guys. Haynes King runs 4.4. Kevin Wood says, why are so many people wanting Kyle fired? When Harbaugh was fired, most fans realized it was really stupid. Is Grant to blame for poisoning the fan base? Well, no, I just think that you're talking about high-profile losses. Talking about losses in the Super Bowl. You know, when you lose in the Super Bowl, everybody notices. As far as the Harbaugh thing, Harbaugh is really tough on the people around him. The fans were never around him, so they didn't have to deal with Jim. The reality is that Jim embarrassed Jed. He embarrassed Parag. He embarrassed, a number of people in the organization. Now, he was 44-19-1, but they just wanted to get rid of Jim. I think if they could have kept the football coach, they would have kept the football coach and just got rid of Jim, because I don't think they really
Harbaugh is there's the best way to describe Jim Harbaugh is this. He's a glorious asshole. He's
a great coach.
All-time assholes. But if you just identify with him from a football standpoint, you got something. You really do. Unfortunately, Jed, I think, wanted more from Harbaugh. He wanted Harbaugh to sell his new stadium, not hand the scissors back to the person who handed it to him when he cut the ribbon on the new stadium. And he's like, we're not practicing out here. This field sucks. So
isn't it funny that during that era, Damon, the field actually did suck. Now the 49ers field has been voted by the players as the number one surface in the entire league. I'd love to know. I mean, not that we really give a shit compared to players and drafting and that kind of thing, but I'd love to know the evolution of how we got from we need to replace the sod, Jim's unhappy, the colors, this field's two-tone, you're changing out the middle, leaving the sides, and then all of a sudden 3, 4, 5 years later, 10 years later, you look up and you got the best surface in the league. That's weird.
If you're going club disco, so am I, Larry.
All right, we only have 3 or 4 more here. Let's see. Did I lose one here? What happened? There it is. Kevin
By the way,
Wood.
thank you for being a member, Kevin. Thank you.
He says, why are so many people? Okay, there we go. We got that one. Then we got this one from Mike. He says, look at what Philly did. Successful draft. They got Saquon Barkley. They got a new OC. They got a new DC, Fangio. And they went from the laughing stock last year to dominant this year. Yeah, no, I agree. When you're not on top, it looks like you're miles away. And when you're on top, it looks like you'll never be knocked off your perch. Neither is true. Things are shades of gray. Lucas Shea, Houston Jr. Shanahan drafted Ayuk and Pearsall round 1 and doesn't utilize them frequently enough to justify the pick. I don't get it. If the 49ers draft a skill position player on offense, they are screwed or fucked, whatever way you want to say it. And we got this one from Fuji Simeon. Damon is hanging in there better than the Niners.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Alien DeJin says, is this what it's like to be a Jets fan? Oof.
No, this is better than that. Trust me. Trust me. The Jets would have loved to have lost last year's Super Bowl. They would have loved to have done it.
Niner Gang says Harbaugh was the best Niners coach since Walsh. For 3 years, it was lightning in a bottle. 3 years, he was incredible. Then he had a 500 year, then he was out. Anyway.
That Jim Harbaugh wick burns fast. Let's see how long he lasts in LA. But Chargers are, pointed in the right direction. Look, the 49ers sitting dead last place now in the NFC West. Sole possession of dead last place. All the games that they pissed away early in the year, they're now coming back to haunt them because of who they are and what they look like. They've just allowed 53 points in their last two. They've lost by 53 points in their last two games combined.
They've just allowed 9 for 9 in the red zone the last two games on touchdowns.
Yeah.
9 trips to the red zone, 9 touchdowns. I mean, that's almost like a statistical impossibility.
It's bad. It's really, really bad. Larry, I hope I'm feeling better come Wednesday when we do another wake up. But the Bears are coming to town, obviously, and they're coming to town without the 5,000-pound anchor of bad ideas that is Matt Eberflus just hanging around their neck. So they're going to be carefree. I don't think the words carefree will be used to describe the San Francisco 49ers at any other point in this season. Kyle looks like he is having a nervous breakdown. This season has been so bad for Kyle, it's getting to his skin. Like his color looks off. He just looks shot.
Well, granted, he was in some cold weather yesterday, but yeah, he doesn't look good.
Yeah. And
that's gonna do it today for us, Damon. We're gonna get out of here. Trent Baalke sold me. Lowry. I really like Gerald Hodges. I like our linebackers. So I'm sure Trent would look at Hodges and say, he looks to me to be an awful lot like a Demetrius Flanagan Fowles or a Devondre Campbell. I really like Devondre Campbell, Damon. I see a lot of potential in that guy. He's got 2 ACLs that could be torn.
That's the thing.
There's plenty of ACLs that could still go in the wrong direction, Trent. So, a guy with 2 healthy ACLs is really just presenting an opportunity to be your player 2 times over because he could tear both of them, in which case you take him number 1 overall. So it's a beautiful thing. It really is. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
And seriously, we hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Thanks so much to Sam's Chowder House for sponsoring us here on Wake Up. We appreciate them so much. We appreciate your supers, your likes, your subs, and all that good stuff. The season is all but over, but keep watching right here because how they put back together a winner, it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting.
Join me in a half hour. I'll be on with Greg Silver and Greg Papa on KMBR doing a little breakdown. Join me at 10:50 for that. Join me tonight at 6 o'clock.
What do they call that show? Do they call that show? Lots of Gregs?
Greg squared. And then join me at 6 o'clock on Niners Nightly on KMBR tonight. Normally we go heavy guests. Tonight, I'm going to devote it all to your phone calls at 808 KMBR. So join me tonight from 6 to 7. That does it for us here. For Damon, I'm Larry. Have a great rest of your Monday. Go Niners.